This is the silver trade that is now going to part 4 basically, because it keeps on teaching us things. This was to refresh our memory on Friday, the 15-minute uptrend, and this leg right here was actually when I had erroneously thought that the 1 minute went into a downtrend, and we tried to trade this right here on that 2-step. But it turned out that this is actually a 15-minute deeper retracement using a 2-step retracement. And then our short trade was actually only a retracement of this MM1 leg, which is the resumption of the 15-minute uptrend with a tiny retrace, which we had tried to short using our green and pink box in theory. And then it continued to basically MM2, and then Friday we closed the month up here, and we theorized that Sunday would see a gap up, and sure enough, this is the 5-minute. We closed up here Friday, and then Sunday we had this very decent gap up right there, which then later in the night came down and actually choked. If this is the BOS of this, then we actually choked right here, meaning that ostensibly sellers were in control if we use our smart money framework, leaving this actual order block right here on the 15-minute. Same order block would have been this right here. So as we came to the charts later Sunday evening into Monday morning, we didn't look at the charts here, but as we came in, we can then confirm that Sunday gapped up, and that's fine. But using the Bennett framework to get the context of the most current context last night, if we're to take this as a break of structure, then we can take this as a choch, whether we should or we shouldn't, as we gain more experience. And this is why we're doing this video, is this a valid choch? And if it is, then we have sellers in control due to the acceptance under this choch point, this protected low of this BOS. And if that's the case, then we actually have a order block right there, and the same on the 5-minute. Despite the gap up, our idea is to look for the most current who is in control, correct? And we use multiple time frames, and here on the 5-minute, that same choch, sellers in control ostensibly, if we were to take this as a valid choch, and looks like we could. And we have this order block, and then we have this symmetry of this leg and this leg, symmetry, but not exactly. Well, then, last night before I went to bed, I looked at this symmetry and looked at this choch, and so I went to the 15-second, and I tried to put this green and pink box here, and we did not hit, and we had this, which is this. So from a higher time frame macro perspective, we can interpret the choch here as sellers in control, and if we want to go with that idea, then we're looking for reversals. In the second part of this video, the second half of the video, we'll look at entry models, but the macro picture here on the 15-minute is that we choked and we have an order block. We choked on the 5-minute and we have an order block. And so let's look at the entry models. Here on the 15-second, at the same spot, I put this green and pink box here to try to theoretically see if, so I didn't catch it, and I went to bed basically. And if you do look here, we really didn't have a reversal. We don't have a well, this is the high right there, and we don't make a higher high after this right there. So we really can't use this line here as a choch. In other words, whatever entry this pink and green box is just a brute force direct candle trying to take just a direct, no reversal signal, but just taking it at the theoretical extreme and the symmetry. And now the question is that a good idea? Well, so then as the night went on, let's scroll forward. Obviously, I would not, by the time it came to here, I would take off any entry order that I would have placed. If I try to catch it here and I didn't get it, as we scroll forward, we see that we did not get tagged in, and this has moved too far. So any entry order I would have put in real life would have been taken off at this point. And then we still don't have here we do have a possible reversal with acceptance, but it's the 15-second chart, so maybe not acceptance, because on the 1 minute in the same area, we really still don't have a proper reversal. So as we scroll forward, we actually would have been stopped out as we continue to push up, and now here we actually have two reversals. We have two reversals here on the 15-second, two proper BOS and choch reversal. This one failed because obviously this is the 15-second chart, so we're walking that in-between zone of using something that's very fast but could fail, using something very fast, very sensitive, but could have false positives. But this turned out to be possibly correct, as if we had used a entry, we may have been able to put a stop here, or put a stop up here, put an entry somewhere around here. Well, this is the question. What is the proper entry model? We choch here, so then maybe we try to enter here on a quick pink and green box, and that would have been a 2R possibly. And so if the 15-second is too sensitive, or has that sensitivity versus specificity issue, then something in a larger time frame would have been on the 1 minute, this would have had the same choch, and we would have stopped higher up here, and it does go higher, and this is the second choch, which turns out to be possibly more accurate, as there was more reaction off of this. And let's see. So it does go down from there, at least for a little bit. So this choch, this BOS, this reversal. And let's see what that looks like on the 15-minute as we scroll forward. This is our order block zone. This is where we were looking for reversal. This right here, this doji right here, that doji right there is somewhere around here. This, when we first put on the green and pink box, that's where that doji is. So as we look at the 15-minute and the order block interaction, this becomes the peak, and we are continuing to drop after that reaction on the 1 minute, this reversal right here, this is turned out to be the proper reversal, which is this peak right here, this peak right here. This is the 1 minute reversal of that in the order block zone, and this is what we're working on. This is what we're working on, which is we find the proper choch, we find the proper order block zone, the zone of interest, and the entry model is the question here on the lower time frame. What is our entry? You know, we can get some sensitivity issues where we can get false positives, but then overall it does eventually turn around with our first attempt fail, and then we sweep turtle soup here. The second attempt turned out to be a proper signal, at least if we do a quick scalp type of trade, and we do get the eventual, I mean, we are currently in this drop here, and we could have taken 2 hours somewhere in here. It's just a matter of what is the entry signal on the 1 minute and on the 15 second, because obviously when we did it this way, we were early. And we'll look at a Euro example that's very similar to this, which is to gain more experience and more answers as to what is our entry model, because we're not always going to get this nice choch right here, this one right here with the BOS and the choch right here. We're not always going to get it, because sometimes we do get just something like this, and it becomes the downtrend starting with this leg already, and that's what this pink and green box was attempting to do, and it didn't take, and our stop was just a little bit too tight. So in a way, we may have to give room. We may try to catch this, but give it a little bit more room, but then that cuts into the R issue, because this would have been a quick 2R if we would have been able to get a tight stop and just take that profit. So there's that interplay between, do we get a wide stop or a tight stop, and just if we're able to take a quick profit, then all of this here doesn't matter, because we would have taken our trade and taken our profit. And in a way, you can see that a tight stop with the 2R would have already taken profit, and so then we can avoid this problem by either of 2 ways: a wider stop, which means we can weather this and then we sit through all that, or we get a very tight stop, get our quick 2R, and we're in and out of the market. And this also has been addressed with a quick profit way versus a wider stop and waiting for all this kind of way. There's just so many approaches, and each one is there's no clear answer, but it's an art right here. And really the reason for this was because of this symmetry right here on the 5 minute into our order block here. And as we scroll forward, we see that this is the symmetry, which is this right there, you know. And if we were able to grab our quick 2R with the tight stop, we've been in and out, and then it comes back up in turtle soups and goes just over the 1 symmetry of 1, but did not hit the 1.27 extension. And then that peak, this peak is this peak right here, is this peak right here on the 1 minute. And now we get the reversal. Our first attempt at the reversal, turtle souped. Our second attempt becomes a valid reversal, a reversal that actually went on to have carried through, at least down to here. And in here, there may have been some 2R opportunities on the 1 minute. So, you know, it does go down, it does take, and it does go down to here. And this point here is this point here, and then it comes back up, and there's more opportunity in there, which we're not going to get into right now. But as you can see, there's some swings in here that you could take a OTE and then take that drop on a ostensible downtrend, on short-term downtrends, like these swings, and then somehow this two-step. We're not getting into that right now. We're right now just interested in figuring out this entry right here, and this entry, this reversal signal on the 15-second, this reversal signal that did eventually carry through on the 1 minute, and basically this 5-minute symmetry that actually turtle souped and then follow through, at least on the short term. So what is some take-home points that we can take? Number one, this choch seems to be something that's acceptable, something that is legitimate with the order block. And the real question is the entry signal. What is our entry signal? And here at the symmetry, we had this, and if we're quick and nimble and we're tight with our stop, we get in, get out to 2R right there, and the rest of it we can watch. And even when it came to here, we get the proper 15-second. We get the first try, and it doesn't follow through. We get the second try, and this becomes a legit, or this becomes a choch that did have follow through. See, on the 1 minute, it did have follow through, and somehow we're able to trade a pullback and fade the trade pullback somehow and get R to R again here. So it's kind of advanced, and it's kind of an art, and because it's all probability and all this is unknown, we'd have to know what we're going to do. We don't know what the market is going to do. We don't know if it's going to be a choch with turtle soup after it, such as here, a choch and then a turtle soup with another choch, and then this choch has follow through, or it's going to be a situation where we really don't have a reversal choch and we just brute force our way into a quick guerrilla style to our attempt, as we tried to do last night, which we did not get entry, and our stop was actually here, in a sense, either too large or too small. This is, in one way, too small because of this. In another way, this is too tight because it didn't allow us to get the 2R quick in and out. So those are the opposing tensions. And interestingly, we have a very similar situation on the euro, which should be informative. And the way I drew this out, I'm trying to illustrate that this is a breaker block in concept, because we have the uptrend, we sweep this liquidity, we drop with our impulse, and what used to be a order block here for the up move got negated and got flipped, becomes a breaker block here because we failed of here after we sweep. So this, you could make a case that this is a breaker block. You could make a case that this right here is a BOS in this manner. If we take this as a localized uptrend, forgetting about what's to the left of it, because this is actually all internal, because there's more stuff over here that is all up and down. But internally localized here on the 15-minute, if we hone in on here, we get this internal liquidity, we get sweep, we BOS, and if this is legit BOS, then this is the first signs of a choch when we gap down on Sunday. Or this is also a protected low, so we actually choch through 2 levels, and that makes it stronger as well. We have acceptance under this choch, acceptance under this choch in the form of a gap Sunday afternoon, which is a slight variation on the theme. We BOS here, we choch here. In any case, we can say, based on this framework, if we choose to believe this framework or choose to think that this is informative and proper, then this choch tells us that sellers are in control, and this again becomes thus a breaker block in the form of this, right? Then this is the previous support that becomes resistance. We have people who went long, who are in pain here, who get relief, like trapped miners that get relief here. And so based on that, we would then have this breaker block right here, and now we'd be looking for entries. Now you see we have the first try, and then we have the second try. So again, we're going to have that similar situation that we just saw in the silver. You know, if you can get in quick and out, in and out, and then it turtle soups, because that's what happens in the transition of the actual move going down. We could get this turtle soup type situation, right? And if we're quick and nimble, we can actually trade this short, and then we are actually mentally prepared for the actual big one also. So these are interesting, informative ideas of a first attempt, second attempt idea that we saw in the silver. So moving over to the 5 minutes, you know, we looks like last night we even tried this idea as a breaker block, a miniature breaker block right at the top. Oh yeah, I remember this. This was kind of funky data. I was seeing 5 pip spreads here. But that was because FXCM had some funky lack of data or something. So anyways, this itself was a early breaker block of sorts. But we'll disregard that. We'll say that we choched properly here, and we're looking at this breaker block, which we're looking for entry somewhere around here, and this is that first little dip, this one right there, and then the big one. So 5 minute and 15 minute. In any case, we're looking to the 1 minute in that same area of this area here. So here, here is this here. And then looking at the 1 minute, we wouldn't have tried to trade this leg. We would have allowed this to actually play out. And if we could theorize that we have a mitigation block here, it's not a breaker, it's a mitigation. On the 1 minute area here, we actually do tap it straight off, and then we move further, and then we come back again into the breaker or the mitigation block. And then there's symmetry here actually. See? That's very interesting. The symmetry idea comes up, and it just exceeds the 1, but it doesn't go to the 1.272 extension. And then here's a quick 2R theoretical. This was not placed blind, but that's this right here. You see this line right here? That's this line right there. So if we move it to here, then it's this right here on the 5 minute. So the 5 minute makes that first indication move, if we could recognize that. And then on the 1 minute, we see that there is a mitigation block as it comes back up into this zone. So on the 5 minute time frame, we have this order block drawn. It doesn't tap it. On the same here, in the 1 minute time frame, if we take this as a order block, we don't tap into it. But if we take it as a mitigation block, then it's the last down candle, so it'll be this. Look at this, on the 1 minute, we do have this mitigation block, which is the last down candle before the up move, because people going long here are in pain here, are in pain first here, gets relief here. That's one of the issues I didn't like about this mitigation block, is that the people in pain got first relief here, but they got in much more pain here, and then they get mitigation ability here. The longs get to escape their pain when it got to here at the symmetry between the 1.27 and the 1.0 mitigation right here. So the question is, and obviously there's no reversal here, and even if you look on the 5 second, you're not really going to see too much, and I don't know. So this is going to be a brute force entry just based on sim and based on the presence of this mitigation block. And would we be able to put an entry order right here and put a tight stop like this and just get our quick 2R? That is one of the questions. So in summary, these are two very interesting, informative setups. We have ostensibly, if we call that a BOS, then that's a choch. If we also call this a BOS, then that's a choch right here. And if we call this a BOS, well, yeah, not exactly correct because of all this history back here. But if we hone in here and bootstrap ourselves and see this as a isolated beginning of some form of uptrend with internal liquidity built and BOS internally here is going to be, if we do this, it's all going to be internal because we're ignoring all this other history, which makes all this part internal. But in a localized way, we have this internal liquidity, we have this BOS, which makes this a proper protected low locally in this very localized context. And we have more BOS here, acceptance up there. And when we broke this level, that's, in the gap, when we broke it, and then we also break this, which is the start of our localized bootstrap operation, then we say that it looks like the sellers are in control. And remember, the whole point of all this choching, BOSing, and all that stuff, and this localized read, and these reference lines, these reference ideas, is just to understand who's in control locally, currently, timely. And this is why a bootstrap operation may be acceptable. And if we accept that framework, then we have this breaker block idea, with this being the breaker block, which is the last down candle before the up move, before the longs. They then get in pain here, they get relief here in this breaker block right here. That's the psychology behind what a breaker block, a mitigation block, a order block, and all that is, or previous support becoming resistance. That's the whole psychology of it, and we know that. And so if that's the framework and that tells us who's in control, then we start to look for reversals here, and that's what all of this stuff here is. And all of this idea of on the 5 minute, we see the order block here that doesn't get hit, but we have a nice 1 minute mitigation block, and that, with the longs getting relief, getting in pain, getting some relief here, getting in more pain, and then in a symmetry type of way, we come back up. So we have this confluence of this symmetry, which is a separate chart characteristic, and we hit this, and we brute force somehow this, and we get our 2R that way.